How would you like to get sellers to do anything that you wanted, anytime, any day, and get the price reductions that you wanted, to stage the way you wanted, to clean the way you wanted, to just do everything from signing the listing agreement straight through negotiating, straight through the escrow process, and get that bad boy closed? You want to know the secrets? Well, let me tell you, Chris Stafford here. I'm a 30-plus year listing agent in San Francisco. I'm still working in the trenches, so I know what works. And that's the reason I started my luxury marketing collective group, which is called the Listing Collective. And it's an amazing group of high-performing listing agents throughout the country. If you want to join more, learn more, hit the link below, and I will talk to you more about that. And stay to the end, and I'm going to show you how you can get this bad boy for free. This is my book, Massive Abundance: How to Create Passion, Purpose, and Prosperity in Your Life. But listen, what's really important for me is I'm strictly a listing agent, okay? I've been doing this for over 30-plus years. I decided to go full on just listings after my partner was diagnosed with cancer, brain cancer. I mean, it was a whole crazy experience that is something that just really made me reevaluate my life and reevaluate my personal choices and reevaluate my business. And it's something that really just drove home the point that, among other changes in my life, working with listings is key. And if you don't know how to work with sellers, that in and of itself is a problem, okay? I think it's super important that you really understand how to listen to sellers, how to really work with them, and how to get what you need to be done to get them the highest price for their property. And that's really the key. We are in the service business, and we want to try to get the highest price for our sellers so they can achieve their goals, their mission, whatever it is, for whatever reason they're selling the house. And do you want to know one of the first things that you have to do? And this is something that you're going to establish right from the very beginning before you even get the listing, and that is to listen. All right? It's so critically important that we as sellers agents, as listing agents, that we build that really deep connection, that really deep rapport with sellers right up front. And seriously, it starts literally with before the listing presentation, how you handle yourself, the kinds of questions you're asking yourself, right into the listing presentation. You know, this is why I have the 30-minute listing presentation in the Listing Collective coaching program I have. It's all about, you know, give them as much information up front as possible so that you can spend that really dear time when you're face-to-face with sellers, really listening to them, really getting them, really understanding their goals, their dreams, their anxieties, their insecurities. You know, what are they afraid of? I mean, these are the kinds of things that you can really address and really get to know and question. And that is what's going to build a strong rapport with sellers. This is the foundation, guys, of working with sellers, is having that strong rapport right up front. It's setting boundaries. It's really making these people, I don't want to say best friends, but having such a strong connection with them that they are definitely going to really listen to you and pay attention to you and value your time and value your opinion. Because the truth is if you don't have that rapport up front, if you're not listening to and that's how you build rapport. If you're not listening to your sellers and you're not asking really deep penetrating questions and then really listening to what the answer is and not trying to formulate your response while they're talking, but really, you know, parrot back to them, build that rapport. That is the basis for your successful relationship with your sellers. Everything else I'm going to talk about, the next few points I'm going to talk about, are going to be useless if you don't have that rapport built in, baked into your relationship. So that's certainly number one. Number two is definitely tell them the truth. You have to tell them the truth. Here's the deal. and I learned this the hard way a number of times. I remember I had sellers where I fibbed a little bit on what buyers were saying, or what buyers agents were saying, or what the neighbors were saying. And it came back to bite me in the butt later on because I just kept whitewashing everything. Oh, your house is so beautiful, your house is so great. The fact that you have canary yellow paint inside the house. Oh, everybody loves it. Bullshit. Nobody loves that paint. And I should have been really honest with them. And when you're not telling them the truth up front, in a really nice, compassionate way, in a truthful, kind way, when you're not telling them the truth, everything else that comes afterwards is going to be really difficult for you to accomplish. Getting price reductions, whatever else that you have to do. So I am always like 100% blatantly, bluntly truthful with my sellers. I tell them what I think up front in a really compassionate, kind way, but I also give them feedback from other agents and what the buyers are saying. And that is something that I think that a lot of listing agents really don't do. And I think, again, going back to the building rapport, when you tell the truth and you really give it to them in a kind way, it really, again, deepens your relationship with them. It deepens the rapport. And you can have actually some pretty intelligent conversations about what is important to get this property sold. And speaking of that too, one of the other things that you should do is set expectations up front. Right when you're signing the listing agreement, this is what I'm going to do. This is how we're going to do price reductions. This is how many times I'm going to call you. Don't work on Sundays or Saturdays, or whatever it is. Set their expectations, because trust me, I've been working with sellers for over 30 years. And again, in a kind, compassionate way, if you tell them up front, okay, this is how I work. This is how often you're going to hear from me. This is how things work with the escrow process, and who's going to contact you, and who's going to do the negotiating, and blah, blah, blah. They're all going to go, oh, okay. And they're not going to care. They're not going to say anything. So if you can set expectations with sellers up front, it smooths out the whole transaction. There's no, calling me at midnight, screaming at me because I haven't called them 14 times a day, that kind of thing. Super, super important. So, and that's a great segue into the next thing, really, is to over-communicate. Over-communicate with them as much as possible. If you have a system in place, I think it would be great if you had a system in place to really let them know by text or by email or by phone call, voicemail, whatever it is. Let them know after each showing, or let them know, do it based on your schedule. Set those expectations. Remember, set the expectations. I'm going to call you every Friday at 2 p.m. and I'm going to give you an update on the activity of the property. Oh, okay, great. That's what the sellers are going to say. Or you could say to them, I'm going to contact you and text you after every showing and give you some feedback on what the buyer said. This is the kind of stuff that you really want to do as part of setting the expectations, is really over-communicate. Over-communicate, because I have sold many homes in my life. I know what it's like to be a seller, and me as a seller, I want to know what's going on, even if there's nothing going on. And that leads me to the next step. Even if there's nothing going on with a property, or even if there is something going on with the property, show off, show your skills, tell them what you're doing. I know one agent that is a really high-end listing agent. She typically does things over $10-15 million. And she really shows off. She has reports that she gives to sellers. She has detailed reports on what buyers are saying, what buyers agents are saying. She tells them what she's doing to try to actively find buyers for the property. I have an active marketing approach that I use, that I explain to sellers on how I actively go out into the community and find buyers for the property. Actually figure out, okay, what's the profile of the buyer for this particular property, and how am I going to actually try to find those buyers or mirror that buyer profile, and really actively search the internet, social media, past sales, and try to find the buyer pool for this particular property. Well, everything I just explained, you should be explaining this to the sellers, because the seller wants to know this. The seller wants to know that you're actively going out into the community and beating the bushes. If nothing is going on with your listing and it's just sitting there and it's not gaining any traction, we should talk about price reductions. You should tell the seller that. And this is what I'm doing. I'm doing A, B, C, D, E. We're not getting any traction. Great lead into the price reduction conversation. And again, the price reduction conversation is something, and I've said this many times in the past, the price reduction conversation is something that you should be having, again, right from the start. Talking about over-communicating, building rapport, really showing off. This is part of it. Talk about price reductions right when they're signing the listing agreement. Hey, if we don't get an offer in 3 or 4 weeks, you and I are going to sit down and talk about what is the best thing that we can do from a marketing perspective and a pricing perspective. And we're going to have to get them because part of marketing is the price. And we're going to need a price reduction to make this really stand out in the marketplace. Keep having this conversation at least once a week with your seller, because when you don't, it makes it so much more difficult for you to have that conversation if you don't say a word about price reductions, and then 4 weeks later you call them up and say, oh yeah, we need a 10% price reduction or a 20% price reduction. Well, that conversation is not going to go really well. So absolutely, that's super important. And then finally, I would say too, and this is sort of like the hardest one, I think, but maybe not, it just depends on your personality type and your demeanor, is be the calm in the storm. You don't, God, I've worked with so many real estate agents that are just nervous Nellies. They are the most biggest drama queens that you've ever seen. They freak out about everything. And this is so stressful on sellers as it is. Their sellers are freaked out because they have to sell their house that they've lived in for 10 years. They have to move their family. They have to move across the country. They have to move to another country in the world. Who knows, whatever it is. They're freaked out, all right? Buyers agents and buyers are freaked out. The loan agents freak everybody out. If they've got a buyer's agent, if a seller has a buyer's agent in another country or another state where they're moving to, they're freaking them out. Be the one person in this whole process where you are just calm and keeping your emotions in between the lines. A mentor once told me that a long time ago. Whether you're super excited or you're super depressed because something bad happened, keep your emotions in between the lines. And do so, it takes practice, but do so even when a seller or a buyer's agent is screaming at you, and try to be the calming influence. Because trust me, in terms of like building that rapport that we talked about earlier, that's going to go a long way to make the transaction happen. It doesn't mean you need to like everything that's happening, or you don't need to like everyone that's happening to you. But when you're calm and you're tranquil about what's going on, you can think better, you can problem solve better, and you can make the whole experience, even if your seller's upset, in the long run, you can make the whole experience better for the seller. So I hope some of these tips help. What you want to do basically is over-communicate and really show them what you're doing, get price reductions, and just the most important thing though is build that rapport. If you want to learn more information about this, definitely hit the link below and let's jump on a call. I'd love to learn about your business and how we can 10x your business and turn you into a top listing agent. And if you want a free copy of Massive Abundance, my book, How to Create Passion, Purpose, and Prosperity in Your Life, just put book down in the comments below and I'll make sure I get that book to you. All right, guys, thanks so much. Have a great day.